Hi, my name is Mitch Rolka, and today I will be lecturing you on history in about 10 minutes or less. Today, me and my fellow group members, Aaron and Zach, will be discussing ancient China, and I will be talking about the Tang Dynasty. For starters, the Tang Dynasty were located in Central to Eastern Asia with the capital city of Chang'an. Many of the social acts of the Tang Dynasty follow behind much of the Sui Dynasty. On the more religious side of things, Buddhism made up most of the Tang Dynasty, for it was commonly used in their arts and poetry. More specifically, Li Bo and Dou Fu from the early 700s were popular poets and held government positions. It was also during this time that Empress Wu had gone from the royal concubine of Emperor Taizong to the first woman ruler of China. Because of her, Buddhist temples both became popular and wealthy at this time because the thought of a woman ruling China was against Confucian thoughts. But in the near end of the dynasty, after Empress Wu, Emperor Wuzong, the ruler at the time, became intolerant of foreign religions, including Buddhism. From that point forward, the Tang had converted back to their original religion, Confucianism, which was mainly used for education before, but it was now known as the common religion at this point. Trade was very important to the Tang as well. Silk, fancy ceramics, porcelain to be specific, and valuable metals like gold and silver were all a part of the Tang's trade system, along with some other stuff, of course. Losses of the western part of the Silk Road happened because of hostile nomads, but they were still open for trade with Islam. The Tang Dynasty in particular was full of technological advances like waterproof and dustproof coats for weapons and clothing, the use of natural gases like oil to power home appliances like stoves, and the best of all, the chair. Beforehand, the Chinese would sit crisscross on a mat. Despite their previous achievements, the end of the Golden Age was marked by the reign of Emperor Xuanzong. Now, don't get me wrong, Xuanzong did some great things like abolishing the death penalty, but his infatuation with Yang Gifi, a woman at Shenzong, agreed to let her overpowering family step in politics, and the amount of free reign that was given to his generals. Since Xuanzong didn't pay much attention to these generals, a rebellion was led by Wu Shan, who is actually a Mongol, was launched to capture the northern territories of the Tang. And though Xuanzong won the rebellion, he was forced to put Yang Gifi to death. And at this point, Xuanzong had given up and stepped down from emperor. And bureaucracy at this time in Chinese history was crumbling, and this marked the end of the Tang Dynasty. And now onto the Song Dynasty with Aaron.
The politics of the Song dynasty were very mired with power struggles and war. Aristocrats controlled the government because of their power and money. Scholarly bureaucrats were groomed and prepped for positions of political powers. Government involvement in economics decreased, causing an individualization in business affairs. The Song dynasty was ended in 1279 by the Mongols, and Kublai Khan stepped in and started the Yuan dynasty. Religion scattered as the new Confucianism, Neo-Confucianism, began to make a rise. The Analects of Confucius began to be printed and spread throughout the empire. This quick rise of Confucianism made a quick downfall for the Taoist and Buddhist believers. Christianity began to make a downfall as well. The Christian missionaries began to cease their missions throughout Asia as the Confucian belief systems began to rise again. The intellectual advances of the Song were vast.
Shen Qiu wrote 5 treatises about his research in magnetism and astrology. Knowledge on astronomy, geography of the state, and mechanics increased greatly. His criticisms of artwork and architecture created a new style of building. Calendars began, and some of the earliest forms of time and dating began. These calendars were also more precise than that of earlier civilizations. So mostly, all sciences advanced.
The technological advances of the Song dynasty were also very.
Gunpowder rockets were used for wars. Landmines were also created. Iron foundries were established, causing an increase of weapon and armor production. These foundries produced over 2 million pounds of iron a year. And last but not least, paper money was introduced.
And now to Zach with his lecture on the early Japanese and Korean.
As Chinese influence made its way
into Japan, the emperor attempted to use these new ideals to better strengthen the empire by creating an advanced bureaucracy and army. Due to the Buddhist influence in the court and aristocratic rebellion, the emperor failed and instead had to return the control to the aristocratic families and Buddhist monks. This was a fatal mistake,
as the aristocrats in their greed grew into separate house kingdoms, or mini-kingdoms, which created armies, built fortresses, and trained elite samurai. Some of these kingdoms fall into power feuds and begin to fight. One clan eventually attacks the emperor, who flees and falls. This splits Japan into around 300 mini-kingdoms that all seem to be at war with each other and created the age known as Feudal Japan. After centuries of putting up with the Chinese control, started by the Hans, the tribal people of Korea founded their own kingdoms, the Goryeo to the north, Paekchi to the southeast, and Silla to the southwest.
These kingdoms soon began to fight each other for power, until China stepped back in to reclaim their territory. They sided with the Silla and together destroyed the two other kingdoms, but found themselves against each other when it came time to divide power. China stepped down and made peace with the Silla, only demanding tribute of resources and natural goods in return for the land. The Silla accepted, and after years of Chinese influence, they eventually became a mini-China. Eventually, over time, they founded a new dynasty called the Yi, who reformed the greedy aristocrats and recreated the trade with China and lasted all the way until 1910.
The Vietnamese people lived in the Red River Valley for centuries and had traded with the Chinese ever since, but that didn't stop the Han Dynasty of China from attempting to integrate with them. The Vietnamese accepted their control and attempted to learn from the Chinese, which they did, all without losing their own unique culture from whom the Chinese frowned upon. There were uprisings such as the Trung sisters who opposed the Chinese control, but it wasn't until the fall of the Tang Dynasty that the Vietnamese struck back and won their independence.
They founded their own dynasty, the Li, and continued to mimic a miniature version of Chinese political structure, though due to their culture, kept local and village leaders in charge as well. They expanded south, successfully defeating the Chams and the Khmers, but as the south expanded, the north began to question their rule. This turned into a clash between the north, Trin, and the south, the Nguyen, and this clash continued until the French arrival in the 1800s.